Welcome everyone to the second episode of the TechRadar podcast. I'm Josie Watson and I'm joined today by Marc Mclaren.
Hello.
Matt Bolton.
Hello.
And Lance Ulanoff, who is no longer with us in person but joining in remotely from our New York offices. How are you doing today, Lance?
I'm good. How are you?
So on today's episode, we're going to recap all of the biggest news from the month just gone by. That's everything from hot off the press new products from the likes of Apple, Google and Meta. And we're also going to talk about TechRadar's Sustainability Week. But before we get on to all the good stuff with sustainability, we're going to pass over to Hamish Hector, who's going to fill us in with all the latest news in this week's In Case You Missed It.
Thanks, Josie. Hi, I'm Hamish, and in case you missed it, here's the biggest tech news of the past month. The AI revolution got a little bit closer with Boston Dynamics unveiling an all-new, all-electric Atlas humanoid robot capable of some uncanny acrobatics and impressive physical feats, as seen in its introduction video. Thankfully, AI also took a major L with the Humane AI Pin. Reviews for the gadget were universally critical, with testers picking apart its bad design, unreliability, and limited features. The Rabbit R1 AI assistant is also turning into a beautiful mess of a gadget. Though this general failure won't be the end of AI wearables, with Meta teasing that its next major hardware innovation will be its AR glasses that will combine the virtual interactability of its Quest VR headsets with its developing Meta AI, an early version of which is already rolled out on the Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses. Sticking with Meta, it also announced that its Horizon operating system, the software that powers its Quest VR headsets, is coming to third-party hardware, the first batch of which includes devices from Asus, Lenovo, and Xbox. It's too early to tell, but Horizon OS might have just established itself as the Windows of spatial computing. Sony's PlayStation Portal lost its PlayStation Portable emulator because the hackers narked on themselves to Sony. Google launched its take on Apple's Find My network, and we used the solar eclipse to crown the best smartphone camera once and for all. Spoiler, it was the Samsung Galaxy S23. That's it from me. You can catch our weekly tech roundups over on TikTok, and I'll see you next podcast for another quickfire catch-up.
Thanks so much for that, Hamish. So that's all the biggest news from the last month. Lots to cover there. Start off with you, Lance. You must feel very vindicated surrounding the Humane AI Pin. We talked about that a bit last episode.
Yeah, I mean, I feel a little badly about it because it's a scrappy startup, but it just didn't make any sense to me, and apparently it didn't make any sense to any of the reviewers. I actually did see, I saw the Humane Pin in person. Somebody brought it into the office, and they just kept talking about getting hot, battery life being poor, and then they showed me the screen where the guy was literally holding his hand and then like trying not to move around so he could see what was going on. And all I could think is, this is terrible. This is not something anyone needs. So it's a shame. I don't know what's happening with the company going forward. The big question, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but the big question is whether or not bad reviews can sink a company, can sink a product. This is their only product. They're not like a Samsung where they have one phone, bad review, and who knows, then they just move on to the next thing. This is a single company, single product, got slammed by everyone, like all the biggest names. And they, by the way, don't seem to be entertaining new reviews, by the way. We've talked to them. We're not getting a lot of feedback.
Okay, sounds like a rough start for them, and never a good idea, really, to stop people from at least interacting with it.
I mean, you have to hope that maybe there's something they can do to improve the experience a bit if they're not bringing out an upgraded version or something. I don't know.
It depends on how many of the flaws are fundamental in the whole idea in the first place. As far as syncing the product goes, a lot of these new tech companies aren't really designed to make money from the first product anyway. So syncing is not necessarily a huge problem if they've got big cash reserves from investors or anything like that. So it might be that they can just retool into some new product that takes the principles that is not massively maligned by everyone who touches it in the first place. But equally, it just depends on if all those investors and their money just kind of go, oh, you know what? This was a bad idea. We're all out. Sorry.
Well, I guess the broader question is, like, does anyone need something like that? And obviously, AI is so exciting and hot at the moment that people are, to an extent, trying to kind of jump on the bandwagon or take advantage of a trend. And I just don't know whether really that's something that is needed because, we all have phones anyway.
I was just going to say that you remember how 3D TV was pitched as a thing, like it was the thing you were going to buy, as opposed to 3D being just a feature of a really good TV. and not the front and center thing. And how people are like, well, I'm not buying a 3D TV. I'm buying a TV that maybe once in a blue moon I might use for 3D. And that's how I feel a little bit about AI. Making AI the centerpiece of any single product, I think, is going to be problematic. It has to be a feature that extends, expands, improves the product that you really want.
Well, you've just had some time with the Rabbit R1 as well, and is it kind of a similar story there? There we go, got it in person.
Yeah, it's a very similar story. I don't even know what to say about this thing. It's adorable. I will say that. Absolutely, 100% so cute. Pretty light, don't even feel in your pocket. But it works in so many weird ways and in none of the ways that I want to. And it basically tries to throw out features, like fundamental features of portable device interaction in favor of sort of this analog experience that makes zero sense. Navigating this thing is virtually impossible. There are no apps. You're only going to talk to it. How often do you want to talk to this thing? I don't want to be seen talking to a little orange box all the time. You don't take pictures with it, but it keeps pictures in a rabbit hole. And I'm not making that up.
I thought that was just a great Lance pun.
I'm not making it up. There's a rabbit hole online where you can see your journal of stuff that you did with it. I mean, in short, I don't know how this thing's going to survive. At least it's cheap compared to the Humane Pin.
What's really weird about this stuff is when smartphones launched, there were all these devices that they killed off, like dedicated music players and compact cameras and all this stuff. And the funny thing about AI or these AI devices is these companies kind of going, oh yeah, but people already have smartphones that AI is inevitably going to build into. So, but we can probably launch a separate device. And I'm like, no, we went through this when smartphones launched. It's just going to be in the phone. That's your competitor.
Well, especially when, we've already seen all of the big Android brands, at least already integrating AI into the phones, at a base level. And Apple's almost certainly going to be doing the same thing very soon as well. So yeah, it doesn't feel like there's a need for this.
Don't you wish these companies had any one of us in the room with them when they were trying to develop this stuff? We would have saved them so much trouble and so much money. My long-term outlook for either one of these companies and product is not good at all.
Well, something we mentioned briefly in the last podcast about not always expecting these products to actually hit the market, especially some of the ones that are shown off at CES that are these really glitzy, cool sounding things that don't necessarily have the real world application. I think like you say, there's not always an expectation that this is actually going to be a product anyone buys, but rather a demonstration they can do this thing.
But clearly a lot of people were interested because, we got a lot of traffic in every story that we wrote about the Rabbit in particular. So, there was interest in it. But I guess maybe the hype didn't live up to the reality.
But that also speaks to CES, which is sort of, a desert for really exciting innovation. It has a lot of cool things, but nothing you go like, well, wait a minute, that's weird and insane. And, Rabbit R1 was unlike anything else that had been announced during that show. And it wasn't really even part of the show. It stole it. But that's only because it was so odd. And it was also the first of its kind, really. I think Humane ultimately came out in between the time we actually got our hands on Rabbit. But I think it just was so different and unusual. That was why, and no one really understood exactly what they were going for. But that doesn't make it ultimately a great product. I mean, I've seen this so many times over and over again with products and companies that, they get a lot of heat, but they don't deliver a lot of utility.
I think it does also factor into the thing that the thing about smartphones, God bless them, is they've made the tech world a lot more boring than it used to be, where just every new concept can just be jammed into that one device that does everything. And for, big tech fans who are looking for something new and exciting to get a hold of, these devices did represent some new exciting idea. It's just that as soon as people actually try and use them in real life, you kind of go, no, never mind, forget it.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I think that's where wearables are having quite an interesting rise in the market as well right now. It's this extra way to engage with these different things. We heard a little bit there about the Meta AI and the Ray-Ban Meta glasses. Have any of you actually tried smart glasses before?
Not glasses, no.
Not smart glasses, just
I've
VR.
never tried. Lawrence?
Yeah, I mean, I've tried different pairs. I've tried the Ray-Ban Stories, the Amazon Echo frames, and they're all, it's hard for me because I can't wear them consistently because I have prescription lenses. So I'm always like, if I want to wear them, I've got to put them in. I do have a plan to try and use Ray-Ban Stories on the beach because I imagine that's a good usage scenario. I mostly just read on the beach. I don't need to see far away. If I go into the water, I don't wear the glasses, but I could sit there. I can, one, listen to podcasts or music and look like I'm still just wearing sunglasses. Two, I can also ask it casual questions. It's connected to the phone and it'll tell me stuff. That, to me, that's an enhancement of sunglasses that I think could be kind of useful. It's slightly bulky, a little bulkier than I'd like. I'm not sure if I'm one of those people who's really up anymore for like augmented reality glasses unless they are exactly like my regular glasses and don't add any extra weight or anything like that.
I'm just waiting for when they're built into contact lenses. That's going to be the game changer, isn't it?
Wasn't there something like that recently?
There were some smart contact lenses at CES.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember
Not
reading
that
something
you
about
know
that.
we could wear them.
No.
Yeah, it's like still that none of them are ready.
I forgot, I actually have tried a pair of AR glasses. I tried TCLs and they demoed them with the live translation feature.
Oh, yeah.
Which is another one of these kind of features like you're talking about where you're like, well, that's actually useful. That I can definitely make use of. Obviously, the subtlety is the advantage there, that I'm seeing this live translation and I'm not kind of looking like an idiot with my phone in front of me doing the translation.
Yeah, that's an interesting use case. I can see that actually taking off at some point, but how good were the translations? I mean, I don't know if you were speaking the language you were being spoken to that wasn't English.
No. I think the translation was fine. It made sense to me. And obviously, it might have just been some other good English that was unrelated. But I mean, that's going to come. That's probably not a function of the glasses anyway. Like that, I presume that'll be a case of glasses have a microphone, send the information to the phone, so that gets translated somewhere else and comes back. So that can probably be upgraded over time anyway. I think it makes sense for these glasses that I can most imagine buying them if they are just this kind of very light touch. They just occasionally show you things when it's appropriate. They show you who is calling you if someone is calling you, but they don't show you every WhatsApp message. Yeah. If you activate the translation feature, you can see that, but otherwise it's not constantly coming in kind of pinging what track I've just changed to or something like that.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see the new Meta OS and see how that would operate in a wearable scenario. I mean, if it's anything like how they run Facebook and Instagram, it will be blasted full of notifications, and I'm not sure I'm down for that. We want to move on to talk about Sustainability Week and what we have been doing on TechRadar and some of the most exciting stories we've uncovered around sustainability. So if you missed it on the website, we ran a week of content all about sustainability. It's something we're really passionate about. We're also going to be doing some awards for companies that want to shout about the amazing things they've been doing. As part of that, we did a lot of advice for people, whether that's on refurbishing their products, how to make the best buying decisions to find things that are energy efficient. But let's start off by talking about what we all do individually to contribute towards more sustainability practice in tech. So I'm going to start with, I personally use a smart home. So I use smart lights to make sure that the lighting in my house is only on when I'm there. I use a Nest thermostat. I know you were saying you use the same. Hive thermostat, yeah. And just little things to sort of help contribute. It's not loads, but it's a start. What about you? What's your biggest?
Yeah, I mean, quite a lot of smart home stuff. I don't know if I can put my electric car into that.
I think so.
It's kind of a gadget.
I'm pretty sure that counts.
It's the most expensive gadget I've ever bought. Anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, I bought it used. I mean, let's just say that.
Well, that's even better.
I'm not. Well, absolutely, because
there
actually that's the kind of thing that you can look into for it. The mileage that I bought it with. It's supposedly already paid off its carbon debt by the time I bought it. And I have a green energy tariff at home, 100% green. So theoretically, all of the driving that I do now is completely zero emissions. It's not quite as simple as that because there's tyre particles and so on, but it's something anyway. So yeah, that's probably the biggest single thing that I've done. I'm testing a potentially sustainable thing at the moment, which is an environmentally friendly dishwasher. It's a single person one. It's called Capsule by Lock Electronics, and it's great actually. I've only been using it for like a week or something, but it supposedly saves something like 76% of the water that you would use from hand washing dishes, and 60% of the energy that you'd use. So dishwashing is better than washing by hand, and this is a good solution for people who don't have the space to be able to have a full-size dishwasher in their house. You can just actually stick it on top of a kitchen surface.
So it's countertop.
It's got a handle, and it's not that heavy, so you can stash it away somewhere. Then you pick it up, put it on the countertop, and it's got its own little water tank that you just fill up, so you don't even have to connect it to the mains or anything like that. So it's quite a nice little solution.
That's really good.
So yeah, I think it's not going to last very long in my house because we do have an actual dishwasher, and my partner is giving me quite a lot of grief about the fact that it's taking up some space on the countertop. But I think for some people it might be a very good solution.
Matt, what about you? What's your big sustainability contribution?
I, for a long time now, have really tried to focus on the kind of buying the right product that is going to last me for a very long time, going for the next tier up, if that's what it means, or making sure that the specs have headroom to grow with like the ways I want to grow. So to give you an example, just had my partner's laptop die on us. That laptop was 10 years old. When we bought it with like it being able to last for a long time in mind. And because of how kind of computing power has kind of like leveled off a bit recently, it's not like doing anything new with a MacBook has required tons more power like it did in the old days. It lasted 10 years and it's now finally given up the ghost. And it's the same kind of things where I've got a lovely pair of wired Sennheiser headphones, and there's no kind of, they're fantastic to listen to music to and also to listen to music on. And the 3.5mm jack has been around for a very long time and will be around for a very long time, despite the best efforts of phone makers.
Bring them back.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's a incredible sounding pair of headphones that never get any worse sounding. They're not being knocked out of the water by new stuff that's coming out. So they last me for a long time as well. And recently, through my job doing AV stuff on TechRadar, I had a load of soundbars in at home, which I was kind of able to audition against my existing soundbar setup. And it was kind of a bit of a temptation. Will I be tempted to upgrade from my old soundbar into this newer version? And I had my old soundbar set up because I was kind of really happy that it was a good investment and it would last me for a long time. Had it for 4 years now, testing it against much, much newer stuff and kind of going, the new stuff is better. It's not good enough for me to get rid of the old stuff and contribute to that e-waste. I'm not being tempted into the constant upgrade cycle. And so that's kind of my philosophy is when buying these things is make sure I'm buying one that I'm not going to, in 2 years, kind of go, I wish I bought the next one up. I guess I'm going to do that now and create that waste or whatever.
I think what this really shows, though, is that you obviously are making very good choices in the first place, so we should all just listen to you. Every time anyone needs to buy a new laptop or soundbar or something, just ask Matt and he will get you something that's going to last a long time.
Which may come up later in the show.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Lance, what about yourself? You've been writing a lot of stuff the last few weeks about refurbished and graveyarded tech, but what's your biggest achievement at home with sustainability?
I mean, I'm similar. I'm similar to the rest of you guys. Obviously, I've had a smart home thermostat for a very long time. I have it upstairs. I have it downstairs, and that makes a massive difference in sort of just hands-free. That it knows when we're there, when we're not there. It builds a schedule on its own, much more efficient than anything that we've ever had. And then even just in our recent upgrades to the house, switching out from traditional light sources, floodlights, to LEDs that are so much smaller. They're really thin. Just even the amount of materials that are used are less, and the power draw is much lower. So that's kind of changed the that aspect of our home life. And then because I'm a hoarder, I have a lot of stuff in my house that goes back decades and decades. So every once in a while, I sort of just go into a box and I pull something out from, I don't know, 1995 or 2000 or even older, and then I see if it can work. I've been wearing, not today for some reason, but I've been wearing a 40-year-old Casio watch, so revising it, and it takes one battery that'll last 2 years, so I'm not charging anything up. I found an old CD player, and I pulled that out, and I started playing CDs.
You listened to Taylor Swift's new album as well, didn't you?
Well, that's the thing. I feel like I pushed the limits of sustainability there. It was the day that the Tortured Poets Department released Taylor Swift's new double album. Everyone was talking about it. I am a Taylor Swift fan. I'm not going to lie. I think she's an amazing songwriter. So I decided to go on the radio and see, because yes, this CD player had FM, AM. It also had weather channels that don't work. It had TV channels that for audio that don't work anymore because there's nothing being broadcast. But in any case, I found one of the biggest radio networks in our area was, of course, playing blocks of her songs. But they didn't come through very well. Since I've written that story, some people have mentioned, which is something I knew, that a lot of these players use the headphone as an antenna. But I had a really good one, so I don't know if the makeup of it didn't have enough metal in it. I don't know. I mean, I went all over. I tried to find a good spot to hear her song poetry, as you might call it. So I've since listened to other ways because I've got to get my Swift on. But that's my way. That's my little way of contributing or not contributing to the world's landfills.
So Lance, can you show us what you've picked out of your box for us?
Well, the one thing that this is slightly different. I'll explain this to you very quickly because there are companies that will bring back old gadgets, right? That will refurbish them. I found a company called Retrospect that takes, and this is literally 35 years old. This is a Nintendo GameBoy. Wow. It is ultimately all original parts, but sometimes a bit of a Frankenstein thing in that they'll take parts from old ones and put them into, and they can source untouched but also old parts like cases and things. So they will bring that all together, and their whole goal is to keep these things out of landfills. And they do it with Game Boys, Game Boy Colors. They do it with Sony Walkman cassette players. They do it with Polaroid cameras from the Polaroid 600, and they'll even work on SX70s. So they do it with all these things. They don't even charge that. This is like $150. They don't charge that much for it, and it works. I mean, it's not just about like, oh, I got this and it's showpiece. I'll put it up on my shelf and it'll just be like that. No, you can totally play this. I mean, it's everything about it works. And it's got and the game in it, by the way.
Yeah,
that's also original. They refurbished the games.
Wow. What game is that?
You can buy those
Tetris.
as well.
Is it Tetris?
Of course it's Tetris.
So
Tetris
good.
is what, I don't know if you can see on here, but Tetris is actually what's playing. I'm playing it poorly.
When I had a Game Boy back in the day as well, Tetris on the Game Boy actually saved my life. The true story. I was flying to America and I was quite scared of flying at the time. Right. And I convinced myself that the plane would crash unless I got to 1,000 lines on Tetris. And I played continuously for 9 hours, 10 hours, whatever the flight was. And I got to 1,000 lines and the plane didn't crash. So as far as I'm concerned, it worked.
This is such an insight into the workings, Mark's mind. I'd almost want to do an entire show just about that. That is quite the story.
We need to get a psychologist on board or something.
Is
and
that
just really dive deep into that? I like it.
Is that where you first engaged with the scientific method?
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. I had a theory, I tested it, and there was proof at the end of it. So
Absolutely.
That Tetris did save your life.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
That was
got
the
it,
theory.
As opposed to what else, Josie?
Sorry, I was just checking that you
I
didn't
wouldn't
disprove.
be here now if I.
I was trying to figure out if that's what made you a cynic, is realizing that this belief you held was disproved by you not getting to that.
I mean,
level.
look, I don't believe in astrology, But I do believe in the power of Nintendo. The other part of sustainability that we should talk about is, I mean, Lance has kind of touched on this, but buying used, I think, is an important part of it as well. Now, I buy a lot of tech used. I'm really into photography, and I don't remember the last time I bought a camera lens that was new. I don't see any point. Camera lenses last really, really well, especially if people look after them. There are some great sites in both the UK and the US that will check them all for you, make sure they're okay. They'll grade them so that you can say, I'm buying one that is, grade 1, and that means that it's perfect, or it's grade 2 or 3, which might mean it's got some superficial damage or something. But you can decide what you want to do on that front, and how far down the line do you want to go on it. And obviously, if they get cheaper as you go further down. But camera optics, if they've been looked after well, there's no change to them. And often, a lens from 5-10 years ago, even 20-50 years ago, can be absolutely great. So I only really ever buy used lenses. I bought some Chromebooks for my teenage daughters, and I bought used there as well, because, frankly, they're teenagers. They're not going to look after them anyway. I'm not spending money on getting them new stuff, so just get them a used one, and it seems to work.
I did that with Eero recently. I've actually bought both our extenders, like the 3 set, I think, and then I just bought another hub that plugs directly into the wall to extend upstairs. All of it was refurbished. All of it was so much cheaper than what I would have paid normally, and all of it works perfectly, because it's also 9 times out of 10 when you buy the refurb stuff, the coverage is just the warranty, and all of that is exactly the same. They all stand behind it. Sometimes what you don't get is the original packaging, but they will still actually put in it some decent packaging, so it's protecting it also. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, a lot of companies are really good at that. Apple do a really good job, I think, on refurb stuff. That I will always, if I am buying a new MacBook or something, then, which doesn't happen very often, because as Matt said, they last very nicely. But I'll always go and look at the Apple refurb store first. That you get a warranty of some kind with it. I think it's 6 months or a year, I think, and they've checked it over and so on. So it kind of seems like you might as well just save yourself a little bit of money here. It's probably no different from buying one of the new ones, beyond the fact that, as you say, the box might be a little bit different or something.
Yeah, I've bought an Apple refurb computer before, which lasts me forever and ever.
Yeah.
In the end, the thing that went in it was the hard drive, back when things had proper hard drives and were replaceable in this older design, shall we say. But yeah, I said this laptop just died after 10 years. I'm looking at a refurbished Mac Mini to replace it.
Yeah, I mean, there is a slight dirty word feeling around refurbished, unfortunately, with some consumers, but I don't think that holds true at all, because so much time the original manufacturers now will participate in this. And even when it wasn't original manufacturers, there are amazing third-party services. And eBay, for example, sells a load of refurbished things that they themselves work with manufacturers.
Yeah, Dyson, for instance, have a refurb store on
Yes.
eBay, don't they?
Which is a great way to get air wrap for anyone who is still looking for one years later, because they are very rarely discounted. It's one of the only ways to affordably buy one. And having seen one, I didn't use it myself, but having seen someone else have one that's refurbished, it looked just as good as my brand new one.
Well, I think I will be remembering that when I buy my air wrap, because obviously
of course.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's done wonders for my hair too. But connected to that is trading in. I mean, part of helping its sustainability is not throwing things out. And when you trade in, you benefit the planet because you're not adding to a landfill. But 2, you usually benefit yourself because you can get a discount on sometimes even a new gadget. We just traded in my one of my kids' phones and got a tremendous value on it. Got now the way they do these values is that they kind of pay back into the account over time. So if you left Verizon, for example, here, they would then charge you for the full amount of the phone that they got with the trade-in. But you can get this good, trade-in value if you follow those rules. And, again, it's a way of making sure that you don't just put that phone in a drawer or drop it into the garbage, which you should never do.
At the start of that, I thought you were saying that you traded in one of your kids.
I have been trying. Nobody wants them, so can't trade them in.
I'm not going to comment because I don't have children to trade in, but I will say to our viewers, don't try and trade in your children. The last thing I think is coming back around to what you were saying about buying responsibly as well, right? And it's not just about buying robust products, but also looking for ones that have replaceable parts, especially if you like upgrading your tech. We've heard in the last month or two that Apple is looking into removable batteries, which is exciting because
Generous use of the word exciting, but go on.
Well, it's thrilling. Everyone is sitting on the edge of their seats. They're so excited.
It's important.
It's important.
If not exciting.
Well, I do find it a little bit exciting because I like the prospect of not having to spend £800 on a new phone every now and then. Like, I like the idea of being able to have my phone for longer than a couple of years. And I think it goes for products like AirPods, which one of your team members wrote about. Becky wrote a fantastic story about how AirPods contribute a lot to landfill waste, as do generally earbuds.
Yeah, so what I mentioned earlier about buying with more headroom, when you can, if it's the right product, if we talk about, so AirPods are the most popular wireless earbuds. They sell more than anything else. For obvious reasons, they connect so well to iPhone, which is one of the most popular phones, and there's a good reason why people choose them, but they don't really have headroom in that you can't buy one with like a better version of Bluetooth than another one. They all just use the version that Apple has deemed to be the correct version for now. So it doesn't apply so much in the AirPods case. But if you're looking at Sony earbuds or Technics or one of the other companies, then again kind of looking at which model, which features. If you are kind of thinking, oh yeah, I've been thinking about getting into higher quality audio from Tidal or somewhere like that, trying to make sure that you buy some that will support aptX or a higher res wireless technology, if that's what you care about. If not, is it just something like making sure you buy ones with the longest battery life? Because that means as the battery starts to decay, which it will in all products that have lithium-ion batteries, because that's just chemistry, after about 2 years typically, that will start to decay. Well, if you start with a longer battery life, then as it starts to decay, it will still feel useful, rather than if you start with one that's got less battery life and then quickly becomes annoying once it starts to decay. I mean, speaking of batteries, so we've just seen effectively the first earbuds that have user replaceable batteries, which is the Fairbuds from Fairphone.
They've been doing great work for years in sustainability.
Exactly, but expanding from the phones into laptops and now headphones more recently. They've done that slowly. I'm sure it's taken them time to do it well. The new earbuds they've just announced, you can replace the batteries in the earbuds and in the case. And in the case of the case, it's just one screw to open it up and then pop in a new battery. They're not ones that you would just like hot swap batteries in and out. It's a bit of an effort, although I do like the idea of it'd be great if smartwatches had hot swappable batteries so that you don't need to wait to charge them between 2 days of use. But replaceable batteries really would make all earbuds last far longer, because it's not generally like the Bluetooth that stops them being useful in the future or anything like that.
I have a question, Matt, about the replaceable batteries on the earbuds you're talking about. Now, those rechargeable, or they're disposable batteries and you just keep putting new ones in?
No, so they are rechargeable. You'd be replacing the rechargeable lithium-ion batteries when the existing batteries have started to lose their capacity and lose their ability to hold charge. Normally, if that happens in a pair of earbuds, you go, well, we've had a good run. I guess it's time for me to buy whatever the newest version that's come out is. Okay, so
they're still charging up within the earbuds. It's a replacement for that's a really smart way to do that. I was just thinking that for any companies that say, how can we allow people to replace their batteries in these earbuds? Well, of course, anybody who wears like hearing aids, that's what they're doing all the time, is they're replacing their batteries. They're like tiny little watch-size batteries. So I like this approach. I think this is a really smart one, with allowing rechargeable to live out its life. And then, since the earbuds, that technology is going to be good for a long time, just put new batteries in. That would be amazing if Apple did it.
Yeah, and some of the earbuds that are out there will kind of offer a battery replacement scheme, and Apple does do this with AirPods, but that's a go through the service center and someone's got to do work because it's very complicated to replace the batteries in a set of AirPods. And of course, the thing about Apple is it has the advantage of all these stores and this service system that is very kind of efficient and robust, and you can just take them in and find out what's going on. With other companies, you don't have that. They might say, great, post them off and they'll go to our warehouse and you'll get them back at some point. And a lot of people just don't trust that, really. So they're not going to do it.
Yeah, and it is effort and annoying to not have a device that you've paid for an extended period of time so that it can be replaced through some sort of complex system that now hopefully is going to be fixable for hopefully a lot more suppliers. But even if it's just Apple at the interim stage, I'll be happy.
We'll see if people respond to the FairBuds. It does, the design of the FairBuds is a little chunkier than some of the other earbuds that have the same kind of features because you just have to design it differently. Maybe companies with more resources than Fairphone can get around that in the way they design it. But ultimately, I think if people seem to want to buy them with replaceable batteries rather than maybe slightly more svelte one with built-in with batteries that you can't replace yourself, then basically the companies will go where people's money go. That's it. That's what I'm trying to say.
It's time for our personal shopper, Matt Bolton, to help one of our readers out who's looking for their dream gadget. So a reader called Victoria has written in saying, Dear TechRadar team, I'm looking for a speaker to use in my shower, but ideally that has Alexa. I like to shower sing, but I want to be able to choose songs in the moment. What's the best waterproof Alexa-enabled speaker for my shower?
So the obvious candidate here is the Sonos Roam. You'll have to get the one that's not the Sonos Roam SL, which is slightly cheaper because that doesn't have Alexa. The Sonos Roam is waterproof. It's small. It's a good size for something like a shower. Sonos also does the Move 2, which is much bigger and more expensive and is drastically overkill unless your shower is like literally a large spa.
I wish.
It's got good sound quality. It's pretty tough and durable. It's going to take a drop as well as some drops. It also has Sonos' own voice control system. If you ever decide to move away from Alexa or you don't want to move it anymore, Sonos has this voice control system that's very privacy focused where you can still ask for music. You just can't do anything else. So the one thing about the Sonos Roam is like it's not cheap. You can find it. It does often have discounts, but it's going to be comfortably over £100 or $100. So some people are probably thinking they'd like something cheaper than that. But the one problem is if you're building Alexa into it, it adds complexity and it adds expense anyway. So I'm going to give some other tips for wireless speakers that are just cheaper and won't have Alexa, but you can just play from your phone over Bluetooth like anything else. So if you want to go super cheap, there's the IKEA Vapor-Bee, which is under $20, £20. Looks like a soap on a rope. Is very cute and sounds really quite good for the money. If you want to step up from there, the Tribit Storm Micro 2 is really good and also waterproof, or the Sony XB100 we also like. And then if you want to go up in price again, the JBL Flip 6 is essentially like as powerful as a Sonos Roam, but doesn't have the voice control feature, and it's just a lower price. It's kind of had its price dropped over time, so is more affordable.
I am surprised that Amazon's not come out with or any of the smart speaker providers haven't come out with some form of shower speaker, because they are good little things.
I mean, Amazon doesn't do a lot of portable speaker stuff. True. And it's really like not that many people have power in their bathrooms. It's,
true. Unless you really are a shower singing enthusiast, that would be quite something.
Anyone watching this, do not try and plug anything in your shower. It's not a good idea.
So I'm thinking that if you'd used one of the cheaper ones, like the Tribit, I think it's called, if you use those and you have your iPhone sitting outside the shower and you can have it connected to Apple Music and you could yell to Siri the songs that you want to play next, assuming it can hear you. So I know some people bring their phone into the shower too. They have those special seal things they do as well, but I really don't recommend that. But it seems like there's a workaround if you want to have your, the special song that Victoria, apparently she likes to pick her songs. She's so specific.
I like to have my phone in the bathroom, which is probably a cardinal sin of a tech fanatic, but I always have my phone in the bathroom with me playing music, so I can kind of understand.
Yeah, you're a normal person.
I mean, okay, but I get told off a lot by my partner for taking tech into the room while I'm having a shower, because he is obsessed with the idea the steam is just going to destroy everything that it touches. So I can understand why people maybe want to keep their phones out of the bathroom, but my speakers work fine still, kind of.
I mean, I put a playlist on, and then I'm not
exactly.
I'm not ordering new music during the shower. It's usually not long enough for a start, but
I think if you're someone who's very editorial about your listening, I can understand the idea of different moods hitting you while you shower, different vibes.
How long the
not
shower.
halfway through the shower.
My shower is literally
personally.
3 or 4 minutes usually. I mean, that's one song. I mean,
It's where I shame myself with my 25-minute showers, is it?
I mean,
That's
you've got
not
long
good for
hair.
I don't
is
have
it?
the water on the whole time. I have the water off for a vast
just hanging out
majority.
in there.
No, but I have to use my hair mask. There's a lot that goes into looking average.
No, I know showers need longer for people with long lustrous hair.
Yes. Well, nearly long. Not quite there yet.
But I kind of feel like it's really not just the experience of the shower. It's ultimately everything. Like if you're shaving or something like that. Like if I have to shave both my face and my head and all that, I actually will put a podcast on, and then I'm only sad because I usually end up turning off the podcast before I get in the shower because I don't bring the phone into the shower. So that's when I really want the waterproof speaker to sort of continue the experience.
I also do podcasts while shaving, but that's a noise-cancelling earbuds event, so that I can actually hear what's going on over the shaving, not the speaker.
Smart.
Well, I hope that's helped Victoria, and do write in to let us know.
Oh boy, we really derailed from the original.
Yeah, but Victoria knows everything about our shower habits
If
now.
Victoria needs to know how to shave while not being deafened by the sound of it, then Victoria will know that too.
And you can email in again and ask about podcast recommendations from any of us. Obviously, TechRadar podcast is what we're all listening to all the time. So today, to wrap up, is our new segment, which is going to be Downtime, where we're all going to talk about what we are going to be listening to, watching, reading, enjoying for the next couple of weeks. Ahead of our next episode. I'm actually going to Greece on Friday. I'm going on holiday.
The musical?
No. I wish. No, I'm going to Crete. So on my holiday, I'm going to be playing AFK Journey, which is a new MMO that I've been playing. It's really addictive, which means it's probably bad for my brain, but I like it. It's good fun.
Is this on the phone?
It is a mobile app. I'm not normally a mobile gamer. I am very much a PC gamer through and through. So it is a bit foreign for me to have something that addictive with me all the time and not just constantly be playing it. But I've done very well. I even did some work today, so I think I'm on for a win.
So you're slumming it in Greece?
Yes.
With your phone?
Exactly.
MMO.
So when I've got my holiday, I'll just spend the whole thing looking at my phone, which is great. I think that's what the point of holidays
What do you do in this game?
So you build a party and you've got different character cards and you collect those, and it's a gacha game. So it's a lot of collecting, a lot of leveling things up, a lot of sort of passive earning, which is just all those wonderful mechanics that are definitely, like I say, good for your brain.
Not trying to convince you to part with your own money at all in any way.
I actually haven't yet.
Yet.
Yeah, I did make that mistake with Genshin Impact, which is a very, very similarly programmed game where I spent far too much on there. But I'm not going to do it. I'm going to ban myself from Apple Pay.
We'll check in. We'll check in a month.
Yeah, see you in a month to learn how much I've spent on diamonds in game. What about all of you? Who's got something exciting they're working on? You've been talking about Fallout.
Yeah, so I've been enjoying the Prime Video TV show. I've been a Fallout gamer for 15 years or whatever it was that Fallout 3 came out. I didn't play the first couple, but loved Fallout 3, probably one of my favourite games of all time. Played Fallout New Vegas, played Fallout 4, and then I got into Fallout 76, and Fallout 76 got a load of criticism when it came out, rightly so, because it was a bit rubbish when it first came out, but it improved massively over time, and I really enjoyed playing that. Now, I've stopped playing it about maybe 2 years ago or something, just moved on, having put in 200 hours into it or something, but the show has kind of reignited my desire to get involved in that universe. So I've been dipping back into it again and seeing what's changed. And it really is a great game. I'm not really into MMO type things myself, particularly because I'm by nature antisocial. But this is a game that you can play.
All nod knowingly.
A social game that you can play without having to actually hang out with other people. And you've got an entire wasteland with only, I think it's like 60 people per instance of it or something. I think there's plenty of space for you not to need to interact with other people, particularly if you don't want to. But actually, as it turns out, the community is incredibly friendly compared to any other online stuff that I've played before. It's people just like, you get high level players making a big thing of seeking out people who are newbies and just going up to them and giving them like free stuff, free like weapons and food and supplies and stuff,
sweet.
Just to like help them. Like, we're all in this horrible environment with death claws over here and all this kind of stuff. We're just going to help you, give you some nice stuff, and people will just randomly like do good deeds for each other and stuff. There are obviously some horrible griefers and stuff as well, but not too much of it. It's a really good fun. Got some great base building dynamics in it, and I'm enjoying my time there.
This is very nice, although I don't really think of it as the spirit of a Fallout game.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's sort of antithetical to the...
I mean, there are like, so all of the computer controlled stuff is like, they're the raiders and various different other kind of factions and stuff, and there's all manner of horrible beasts that will kill you and so on. So it's got all of that stuff as well. And the players, you can do player versus player combat, but they've set it up so that if you don't want to get involved in it, then you won't take any damage. It's only if you both fire on each other that the damage will start kicking in. Otherwise, you can stand there and just basically be a bullet sponge, and it won't do hardly any damage to you at all. So if you don't want to get involved in that kind of thing, then it doesn't force you to. So it's nice.
It's the I'm rubber, you're glue way of doing player management.
Exactly.
It works quite nicely, to be fair. It sounds a lot better, like you say, a lot better than some of the communities that exist in the world right now.
I'm just going to add briefly because it follows on with Mark said. So obviously I did watch Fallout, the show. I am not a gamer. I'm sort of a gamer that gamed way back, but mostly not something I do. But I was so intrigued, that I really enjoyed the show so much. So I started to get a little obsessed with, well, what is the real game all about? So then I bought on Steam Game 1, 2, and some sort of like extra pack that went with it. Well, let me just say that Game 1, the original Fallout, is really, it is and isn't like the game, the show. It's like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, I just stood there, I was getting eaten by rats, I couldn't even figure out the key combo to stop it from happening. This horrible sound, and they all just run around, and I seem to have no tools or anything. It took me quite a while to realize I could level up my intelligence and also lower the intensity of the game, the settings and all that. But it was kind of interesting just to look at a game from Interplay, of all companies, which was one of the biggest game companies of the mid to late 90s. For I think it's 1997. And it had all those sort of classic late 90s gaming tropes that I was familiar with. I used to play Duke Nukem, Wolfenstein 3D, Doom, all the originals. Those are the ones that I really loved. But it was an experience.
I think I've played Doom on at least 5 different game consoles or generations or whatever now. Probably right up there as my favourite game of all time.
And what about yourself? What are you watching, reading, viewing?
Watching? I want to go back to Fallout for a second to say anybody who likes it, I 100% recommend Person of Interest, which was an earlier series done by Jonathan Nolan, who helped develop Fallout. It's crazy. It's really good. It starts off as a very kind of standard feeling police procedural. And by the end of season 5, it's about a secret war between 2 super AIs. It's bonkers. It's so good. It's got one of the best episodes of television of all time.
One of the stars from that has a cameo in the Fallout TV series.
Oh, that's cool.
As to what I was originally going to say, so new movies that are around at the moment. I've seen Challengers, which I thoroughly recommend to everyone. Has a really interesting, surprising structure. So it stars Josh O'Connor, Mike Faced, and most importantly Zendaya. In her villain era, I've seen it described as, which is great.
Ooh, love that for her.
And it's about these tennis players, and it's got a surprising structure because there's a bit in it where they're kind of playing a match. It's not a very important match, and you're just kind of thinking, I'm sure we'll move past this quickly. And it turns out to be the linchpin of the whole movie is this match. And through flashbacks, the movie just keeps adding more and more importance to the end result of this seemingly not very important match. And the end is just one of the most incredibly tense things I've seen in the cinema in years. It's so well done and really surprised me. And then I'm really looking forward to seeing Love Lies Bleeding, which is out here in the UK soon, is already out in the US. Our US entertainment editor, Al, has already seen it and loved it, starring Katie O'Brien and Kristen, oh my God, the Twilight one.
Stewart.
There
we go.
I was racking through all the Kristens. Kristen Stewart. It's like a neo-noir that looks very funny and weird and tense and exactly my bag.
Nice. And Lance, you're obviously playing Fallout 1 and 2. But is there anything else that's on your radar for the next month?
I'm going to take a vacation in the next month, going south to explore some history, some U.S. history.
Which history?
And
Which bits? Where are you
well,
going?
I mean, I guess it's really Civil War history because we're going to Savannah, Georgia. We're staying in, I'm not kidding, we're staying in a haunted hotel.
I'm
which
so
is an
jealous.
accident, which wasn't intended. We only found out after. Now my wife is panicking about this because previously, many years ago, we stayed at a haunted bed and breakfast, and we woke up one morning and all of our toiletries were just strewn about, and we didn't know what had happened.
So Lance, you did this piece comparing taking pictures of the eclipse on different cameras to see which one did it best. Are you going to do the same for the ghost? See which one captured?
Exactly.
I shot a ghost on my iPhone and it was better than the Galaxy.
Which phone can actually capture a ghost? Well, that would be, I can guarantee that would be a pretty big story if I managed to do that.
Have you thought about trying to call in? Have you seen those spirit boxes that these ghost hunters use on YouTube? It's like these little devices that tap into radio, and they the ghosts channel through the radio different words and messages.
Is it a radio?
Yes, basically.
Are they just listening to the radio?
Yes, and invariably, the words that come through, it will just every now and then be like pieces of cake. And then just randomly a few seconds later, I'm dead. And then it's they died from eating too much cake.
I have a horrible
brilliant
feeling that if
thing.
I was a ghost sticking around and haunting people, it would be for some insane reason like that. I'd be so angry about cake.
Yeah, well, Lance, I think you definitely have a case to pull one of those in if you want to do some ghost hunting of your own. That's an interesting way to engage with tech on your holiday, I suppose.
Sounds like a great plan. Maybe I'll be leaving some of the technology behind on my vacation. We'll see. That's always my goal, and I often fail.
Well, hopefully you do succeed, because it would be nice to come back next month all relaxed and chill. Well, it's only you and I have holidays. You two will just have to muddle on through, I suppose.
Muddle on through. So right before my vacation, I'm going to run out. In fact, I'm going to leave here now, and I'm going to find out what Apple has done with all its new iPads, because that's what I assume I'm about to see. So I will come back and tell you more, hopefully soon.
So Lance, you're back from checking out all of the iPads. How did you enjoy the event?
It was good. It was a very unusual event. A little small space, not a lot of people, but otherwise it was somewhat familiar. Here's our new products, and now run to another room and go touch them.
Okay, and speaking of these new products, why don't you quickly tell us all about these new iPads?
Right, so we have 4 new iPads. We have 2 iPad Airs, an 11-inch and a 13-inch. First time we've had a big 13-inch iPad Air, so it's iPad Air 6. We also have the iPad Pro in 11 and 13 inches. And really, the heart of the innovation is on the iPad Pro side. Now, the iPad Air has an update with the M2 chip. but there really isn't a lot of other than the new larger size, there isn't a lot of other new things about the iPad Air. But the iPad Pro, the iPad Pro is really, it's got, so we have a new chip. We have a new piece of Apple silicon. We have the M4 chip, showed up. It was rumored, but it's a big surprise because Apple's never launched a new piece of Apple silicon inside one of their iPads. But it's more than just that, because then there's two things about the iPad Pro that will really stand out, both on the 13-inch and the 11-inch, but even more so on the 13-inch. One is how thin they are, and two is this new tandem OLED display. All right, so imagine one OLED display, and the thing about OLED displays is that they can produce their own light source, but they're also ultra thin, right? Now imagine another one, and now imagine them sandwiched together. I did speak to Apple quite a bit about this to understand the technology, and I kept saying, so are the pixels like this, or are they lined up perfectly? Turns out they're lined up perfectly, and it's really a lot about boosting the brightness enough. So, you have 1,000 nits SDR, 1,600 nits HDR, and that's really unheard of for an iPad. You have these really inky blacks. It's one of the most gorgeous iPad screens I've ever seen. And then, of course, there's the thinness. Now, the iPad Pro 11-inch is 5.3 millimeters thick. That's thin, right? But the iPad Pro 13-inch is 5.1 millimeters. It's crazy if you pick it up. You're like, well, why is it so thin? So it's really amazingly thin. Part of that does definitely have to do with the OLED screen technology, which allows it to be thinner. And then, of course, they put inside of it the M4 chip, which is in both of them. But the M4 chip is almost necessary to drive. It has the technology and understanding to drive the tandem OLED, which is, by the way, called Ultra Retina XDR display. Ultra Retina XDR display. I hate that there are so many words
there are
in
so
that
many
display
like
name.
Terminology, like tuning in. It's like, yeah, the Ultra Retina XDR
How about
display.
another adjective? How about another one? More adjectives. Keep throwing them in.
Ultra super duper XDR, HDR, everything. I'm expecting that next time. So ignoring everything that was announced for a second, which might seem a bit weird, but was there anything that was sort of a bit of a surprise that we didn't see, or maybe something you were disappointed that wasn't shown off at this event?
I was kind of hoping that they would finally introduce wireless charging to their iPad line. I just think that would have been really cool. Now, understanding how they were going for sort of the ultra thin angle, maybe that wasn't possible. But I just think that at this point, it just seems like it should be possible. So that was a little frustrating. And the fact that there's no update to the iPad mini. And I feel like while that product is still available, it's out there, Apple's supporting it, it's just kind of curious that they haven't updated in a long time.
And then, actually, I wanted to ask, so a couple of accessories were also shown off alongside the new iPads.
Yep.
And I think maybe one of the slightly more standout of the two was the Apple Pencil Pro. Have you given it a go? Do you think it's worth the upgrade?
I have. So, it's hard to say. By the way, it's hard to say any of these things are worth the upgrade right now, just because we haven't fully tested them. I will say I'm impressed by a lot of what I've seen, but people can be quite happy with what they have, and the Apple Pencil is probably a good example of that. If you look at it, fundamentally, it looks the same as the last Apple Pencil, but it has on it Pencil Pro printed on it. And then there are some features. One of the really cool ones is called barrel roll. Okay, so very simply, you hold the pencil, and if you spin it in your hand, right, the virtual nub will turn. It'll turn with you. And that can be really useful, say, if you're an artist and you draw with like a thin line, or if you want to draw with a wide line, and you just want to do it by turning the pencil. If you ever draw with a Draftsman pencil, it's kind of like that feature. But a lot of different apps are kind of using that barrel roll in different ways to enable some really cool creative techniques. The other thing is a haptic response. And the haptic response, basically, when you squeeze the pencil on the bottom third, you feel like as if you're actually squeezing it, and that is to change different aspects, different tools. So there's that, and of course you can still do the tap. So there are a bunch of new features on the Pencil Pro, which and it only costs $129. One interesting thing to note about the Apple Pencil line, which goes all the way back to the original Apple Pencil introduced in 2015, is that they're all kind of supported across the iPads, but only 2 at once and different 2 for almost every iPad. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, so it's like you've sort of got to get through this minefield of what pencil goes with what iPad, particularly if you're looking back a couple of generations.
That's right. Yes.
But also, I kind of had to stop myself laughing because every time you say barrel roll, I think of like Star Fox. And so just one of the characters saying, do a barrel roll. Anyway.
It's not going like that.
It's a silly name. It makes sense, I guess. And then finally, sort of, we've seen a lot of videos online on social media, particularly with some of these more wild tech that Apple's been releasing. People doing odd things with it. And as you mentioned, the new iPad Pros are super ultra thin. How long will it be until someone sort of karate chops through one or, shows how easy they are to bend?
Well, it's funny you say that. I've been thinking a lot about it. And I do, look, when something is that thin, you immediately worry about its durability. I will say that the iPad Pro 13-inch and the 11-inch was a tiny bit thicker, felt solid and sturdy. They didn't feel flimsy at all. But of course, I know somebody in very short order is going to torque it and be like, watch this and twist. Try and twist it. How far they can go, I don't know. And that's a risk that I'm sure Apple's thought about. I'm sure that they realize that this is probably what's going to happen at some point. But they say it's strong. That's the thing that they said during the event, that it's as strong as the previous iPad. So we'll see.
Perhaps that'll be one of our tests when we get it in.
I try not to break, because I have to send it back to them. I try not to break the devices.
Okay. We'll be nicer then, we promise. Anyway, well, thank you for running us through all that, Lance.
It was my pleasure. I'm, just still recovering, but I can't wait to get my hands on them and do full tests. So don't forget, in the next episode of our podcast, I will, in fact, tell you all about my review process and what I thought of Apple's new iPad lineup.